Good evening to all of you. On behalf of Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka chapter, a very warm welcome to all the participants. For the benefit of our new members and the non-members, I would like to briefly introduce the role that Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka plays to support MSME sector. Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka is a state chapter of Laghu Udyog Bharati National, catering to 24 districts of Karnataka and works towards the empowerment of entrepreneurs in the micro and small sector. We have about 1,000 members as of now. It plays a very active and important role in promoting trade and investments in the state. Being the apex organization in Karnataka for MSMEs, it regularly interacts with senior government officials, both from the center and the state, on critical issues concerning MSME sector. LUBK is involved in activities including capacity building, industrial visits, interactive meetings with government departments, participation in national and international exhibitions and trade fairs, hosting of national and international exhibitions, hosting and organizing international business delegations for technology transfer, B2B, and joint ventures and collaborations, and of course, promoting leadership among women entrepreneurs. Coming back to today's webinar, we have a very veteran person, Sri Ramesh Subramaniam, manufacturing and marketing expert, and currently he's the president of Sri City. He will be speaking to us on the topic increasing competition is posing fresh challenges for MSMEs and how to strategize businesses. Let me have the pleasure of introducing the Sri Subramaniam. He's currently the president of Sri City, an industrial park developer in South India. He holds a master's degree from IIT Mumbai and had worked with the Tatas for over 27 years in senior capacities as vice president projects, leather division, etc. He also worked with Unido as the national expert in leather products for 5 years. He has been involved with exports for over 25 years and headed the operations at Sri City from its inception for 6 years, bringing in world-class infrastructure in Sri City. He currently heads the marketing and HR in Sri City. He is currently a member of the board, Sri City, advising and handling all statutory and government compliance for Sri City. Over the last 50 years, he has worked with several top managers, both in the private sector and with the departments of the government. He was able to observe the changes in manufacturing and marketing sector in the Indian industry and how these changes were absorbed and challenges dealt with. I now hand over the session to Sri Ramesh Subramaniam, sir. Sir, over to you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank the Karnataka branch of Laghu Udyog Bharati for giving me this opportunity to speak to you on this very interesting subject of increasing competition is posing fresh challenges for MSMEs. I see a lot of senior entrepreneurs who are there today, and therefore there's not that much that I can tell you which is new. But all the same, I thought I would present a different point of view and try to structure some of the findings so that I hope it will be of use to you there. I have a PowerPoint presentation to start with, and this will take about 20-25 minutes. So give me a minute to log on to the presentation.
Mr. Praveen, I request you to please switch off your camera, please. Mr. Praveen. I'm Mr. Mahantesh. Mr. Praveen B, please switch off your camera, please.
Are you able to see the presentation, Shekhar?
No, sir. Yes, sir, it's coming, sir. Yes, you can full screen, sir.
Yeah. Is it clear now?
It's clear, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. This is the subject of today's talk. Increasing competition is posing fresh challenges for MSME. First of all, I'd like to compliment the MSME sector because this is a sector that has been run down many times, and yet they contribute to 30% of India's GDP and almost 48% of India's export. So without the MSME sector, our economy would be in shambles, and it is not the large companies that are really taking us forward. The MSMEs, as many times this has been said, have really got together and pushed us through several developments over the past few years. And this is really a very nice opportunity to speak to some of the leaders of the industry. Now, first of all, I would like to address the question of when we have these challenges of increasing competition, where do the challenges come from? Some of the areas I have mentioned in this slide. One is technology changes. When superior products like iPhones come into the market, the product that you are making may not be as hot or as relevant as it was yesterday. So this could be a challenge, that type of challenge that could come into play. The second challenge could be too many players in the market. When the market is overcrowded, everybody thinks it's a gold mine to get into a particular industry. They all jump into it. And finally, there's too many players in the market, increasing competition and not really helping each other. Overcapacity in the sector is another reason where the challenges come from, where then there is pressure to sell at lower prices or for people to exit the sector because they are not viable. Another challenge could be export barriers, where there are tariffs and non-trade barriers imposed by the countries. Suppose you are exporting something and then suddenly it's doing well, and suddenly there are some trade barriers, and we have these barriers coming off and on due to political reasons and reasons beyond the control of the company. And they can also hit the business quite badly. The other reason could be credit policies of competitors. Suddenly, when the market is low, some of your competitors who probably have a little more cash tend to give 3 months credit, 6 months credit, and so on. And they, in a way, spoil the market because everybody jumps for this and then wants to take it. And therefore, it affects your own business. And then how do you deal with it, although you don't have control on the credit given by others? The other reason could be that there are intense price competition amongst the players in the sector. And then how do you deal with this problem? One more problem that could come could be imports, where you have free trade agreements from Thailand and Sri Lanka and so on, where the materials come in duty free, and they tend to knock off the bottom of the MSME business in India. This has happened in a number of areas. For example, the entire tiling industry, soft toys, plastic toys, all these industries, because of free trade agreements and cheap imports from China and other Thailand and so on, they have really given a lot of trouble to the existing industries in India. And unfortunately, the government has still not introduced enough measures to protect the existing industry.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
The presentation, please, can you make it like it's not full screen, sir, presentation.
Sorry?
The slide is not in full screen.
It is in full screen, on my screen.
You can reload it, sir. Somebody presented that. Somebody by mistake presented it. So can you reload it, sir, please?
I will just, okay, I will reload it. Yeah, is it better now?
No, it is not visible, sir.
Not seen at all.
Yeah, it's coming, sir. 1 minute.
No, now it's okay.
Yes, sir, please continue, sir.
Yeah, okay. So this first slide deals with the types of challenges and where the challenges are coming from. And this is very important because when we are going to address the challenges of competition, we need to know from where the challenge is coming from. And this must be backed by data and factual knowledge to be able to take a good decision. The main sectors where we face challenges today these are only some of the sectors, not all. One is in logistics, where you have couriers, transport companies, and so on, where there are many players and several reasons where there is intense competition. and margins have been eroded in many companies. In the food industry also, where you have eateries, snack makers, ready-to-eat foods, and so on, here again there has been intense competition in the last few years, and with a large number of players, and this is again causing a lot of difficulty for players in the sector. Auto components is another area. Although the automobile industry has grown, there are several component manufacturers who are also facing difficulty in being able to supply. In fact, during the lockdown last year, a large number of auto component manufacturers in Chennai area were almost bankrupt, and they had very great difficulty, coming back to the industry. Another area is retail stores. I don't here refer to the large format retail stores like malls and so on, but the kirana shops and maybe people who have 3, 4, 5 shops, who are businesses doing service businesses, they are also under pressure because due to the lockdown and other competition from e-commerce companies, their business is also facing intense competition and its effect on margins. The BPO industry is also facing major challenges because of competition and price cutting from various companies. This is again a sector that is hit quite badly. Generally, all service industries have also faced intense competition in the last few years, when people have found that this is where the entry barriers are small, a lot of competition tends to come in, and this is again a big problem. You do not have in the large companies, especially in industries like mining, steel, refineries, and so on. That's why the big corporates, I used to be in Tata, and we would never touch an industry where the entry barriers were very small. They would always say, find an industry where the entry barriers will need an investment of 20,000 crore, 30,000 crore. So only 2, 3, 4 players would come into the sector, and people who are really serious and long-term investors would come into the sector. And in the MSME sector, this is one of the problems, that when entry barriers are low in terms of low investment and ability to start quickly, then you face a lot of competition. There is also e-commerce sectors which are facing problems, especially the smaller industries who are having difficulty. These are not all the sectors, but some of the sectors that I have mentioned to give you examples. Now, question is, how do we address these challenges? So the first way I would like to discuss is changing the way we do business. This is very, very important. In today's times and also in general times, when our business is doing well, maybe we have our grandfather who started the business, our father did, and everybody tends to tell you that do it the same way that they did. Yes, in some respects, this is correct. But if we do not change the way we do business, then this is seriously going to affect our company, our operations. And this is, especially in today's time, this is very, very important. And how do we change the way we do business? For example, today, accepting digital payments. You see a lot of MSME enterprises today, they were either dealing in cash or check, and the banks are closed. There are a lot of difficulties and so on. But if you do Google Pay or other forms of accepting digital payments, it would solve a lot of hassles when people are still hesitant to accept such payments. I think they should seriously look at accepting digital payments and make it easy for the customer to pay the supplier when they supply goods. Home deliveries is something that people need to look at more seriously, because earlier they never used to deliver at home. Now, because of competition and e-commerce delivering at home, somebody is doing it, and people thought it was impossible, but now it is possible to do it. And therefore, home deliveries is one example. Another way to do in bad times is to increase the warranty period. Now, here I want to tell you one practical example. In all my years in Tata and other places, when we had to buy equipment and machinery, I would always never buy from a company that could not give a 1-year warranty. The reason was that I used to tell my people that if people cannot give a warranty for their product, that means they are not confident about themselves, their own product. Therefore, why should you go and buy from them? The whole world is open. If you don't find a supplier in India, you can even go overseas and buy. But definitely, we will not buy from people who cannot give some warranty for their product. Now, 1 year may be a little long for some products, but at least there should be a 6-month warranty in specific cases. But increasing the warranty period can give a lot of confidence to your customers And this is something that people should seriously think of and either improve the quality or find ways how to increase the warranty period. Faster delivery is again one way to cope with a lot of competition from e-commerce companies. For example, if there is a Kirana shop near my house and there is Amazon also who is delivering, the Kirana shop here could say, look, if you give me an order, I will give you delivery in 1 hour. That makes a lot of difference. The other thing is many of them take orders on the phone, and most of the time is occupied by the owner in only receiving telephone calls, and he doesn't attend to all the customers who are coming into the store. If they only put a small recording machine to take down all the orders with the telephone number, they could pack everything and send it to the customer. And this is a small device that could be put in the shop and then do it. I just want to give you a fascinating example that I always find very interesting in Karnataka. You go to a roadside tea shop, and I find their efficiency is far better than most tea shops in India. The reason is that they are able to serve very, very hot tea to every customer in 1 minute. And what they do is they keep a big thermos flask, which you find in most shops in tea shops in Karnataka, with a tap. And every time you ask for a cup of tea, they'll give you boiling hot from the flask, and they keep on refilling the flask with hot tea, so that based on the orders, they don't have to wait and they are able to give immediate delivery. And such a simple device has saved them a lot of time and ability to cope with the customers or even peaks of their business there. Introducing new products is again a good strategy that we can address some of these challenges, and you bring in new products which interest the customers, and therefore you can compete with other people in the market. And changing the marketing strategy in such times is also a very, very important way to deal with the problem. The second way is innovation. Now, innovation is absolutely the key to surviving in the business. I would request you to look at a company, a government company like IRCTC, which is the railway arm for ticket booking and so on. When I was in college, I used to spend the whole night at the railway station trying to book tickets for my family when we had to go on holidays. And then perhaps, unless I was first or second in the queue, I wouldn't even get a ticket. Today, over time, you're able to get, first they said, yes, you could book a ticket and it would be sent to you by courier. Then after that, they said, no, you don't even need to courier. You can get a, e-ticket. Then they said in the railway station, they used to put up big charts on the coaches where you had all the berth numbers and so on. And thousands and thousands of pages of sheets of paper were used on all the trains in India. And they said, no, that's also not required. You have your ticket, you go and sit in your berth, the coach number is there, and go and sit on your berth. I have admired this company as one that is constantly innovating to survive in the business. And today they do more than 500,000 tickets online. And they collect money immediately, and there's no waiting, and you can book tickets 24/7. So this is really one of the examples of very good innovation, and that too by a government company. They are on the top. Now they have gone even further by saying, I can book your hotel, I can book your car, I can do ticketing for you, air ticket, whatever you want. And then they are also doing food catering, and they have now become a public limited. They have done an IPO, and they're doing exceedingly well. But there are at least 20 innovations that I can think of, that major innovation that they have done in the last 2 years. And therefore, this is an example that in our own businesses, we need to innovate. And the important thing is to keep a book, which is not, this is not an exam, where you write down every month, what did you do in respect of innovation or any of the challenges that I have mentioned here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So unless you write down and see for yourself what has happened, if it's all 0, 0, 0, that means there's no innovation happening. The other important thing is innovation is no magic, and you can't get an Einstein in any company tomorrow morning who will come up with the theory of relativity. What I have found is that only continuous improvements in a company can lead to innovation. If you don't have improvements, small improvements, over a time you can get innovation. But if you don't do continuous improvements, the chances of innovation are very, very little unless you copy from somebody else. That is I'll just give you an example of Toyota. about 35 years ago, they used to receive 3,000 suggestions per employee per year in their factory in Japan. I visited this factory also, 3,000 suggestions per employee per year. And they had a very good group to analyze all these suggestions, implement the suggestions, and this made them the world #1 in car manufacturing. And Toyota has done great improvements in the car manufacturing area. And this is due to continuous improvements, which has led to major innovations also over time. The next thing is again very important, good metrics to measure what is happening. One of the biggest problems in MSME is, and also in many corporates, I find there are very, very few metrics and the quality of metrics is very poor. Metrics are measures to analyze, to study the level of your business and then to take action based on the data. Most of the metrics, if you look at any company and say, what metrics do you have? They will say, yes, sir. In terms of quality, what is the metric? We should have good quality and customers should be happy. To me, this has absolutely no meaning at all, because what is good for you may not be good for me or may not be very good for somebody else. There must be a measure and it should be repeatable, it should be measurable, and it should be predictable. These are the three important steps for any metrics. And unless you have measurable metrics, motherhood metrics like good quality, customers being happy, there is no meaning in having such metrics at all. A very good metric that Cognizant had many years ago, I used to see one of their advertisements, 100% customer retention year after year. Now that is really a very good metric, because they said, I will not lose any customers and I will retain my customers 100% year after year. That is an example of a very good metric that they had, and they made sure that they were able to follow that. So like this, please develop good metrics and to analyze what is happening in your business. And this is not an exam, it's for your own help there. And that will help you understand what's happening. And then you can keep ahead. Finally, you need to keep ahead of competition also by all these changes that you make in the business. Now, one third method of addressing these new challenges, I mentioned the first two. One was innovation, and the other one was using changing the way we do business, and then the other one was innovation. Now, how do we address these new challenges? The third one is to segment the market. Not many are aware about market segmentation. That means you divide the market into different segments and don't do one product for which fits everybody. And this could have different meanings in different circumstances. So one is to segment the market. Second, have different offerings for each segment. That means you may have one segment. For example, you could have a segment where you supply auto components, one to the OEM people, and the second one could be the spares market in the local market. So you could have different offerings for each. The OEM has a very very fixed formula where you have to deliver a certain quantity by a certain time, and then there is a fixed price and so on. The spares segment may not have so much of price pressure and so on, and yet if you service that market well, even if you have a slack in your OEM segment, you could do well in the spares segment and then develop things which are not done by other people. Then you could also segment by geography. That means if you have a cement plant and you are close to the customer, it's much easier to service these customers than to travel 500 kilometers and deliver your product, which will, therefore, you must look for low transport costs and be near to the customer. In fact, one of the policies that we used to use, when you select the plot for any factory to be put up, we used to always say it must be either near the source of raw material or it should be close to the customer. For export companies, you couldn't be close to the customer, so we said you have to be close to a seaport or an airport as required. That would be the closest to the customer. And this is again an important aspect that you should need to consider to be sure that the geographical segmentation is correctly done by your business. You could also segment by products that is differentiated for customer segments. For example, you had shampoo sachets. Then you had Horlicks and so on, which used to come in a bottle, or later on perhaps in a container. But Kevin Care, Mr. Ranganathan introduced the sachet several years ago, where you could have a single-use sachet. Then Parachute came up with this with coconut oil and so on. So by giving it into a smaller packet, which you could use and throw, you didn't have to carry a lot of oil and spill in your suitcase and so on. And therefore, it was very convenient. And therefore, you had a segmentation of product differentiated for customer segment. So for the travel segment, you had a sachet. For the poor people who couldn't afford a big bottle of Horlicks, you had a 5 rupee sachet for Horlicks. And then for the other segment, you had a big bottle, and somebody you had even a tin of Horlicks to be given to them who could afford it. So you differentiated by customer segments. And the fifth one in the segmentation is segment by markets. One is by, for example, you could supply to OEMs there, and also you could do the spares market for the same product, and then supply to dealers and deal with them so that you have another source of supplying the market. One important lesson that I learned is that in all our business, we were always told when I was in Tata that you should never have more than 25% of your business committed to any one customer. This is a very important rule. And in the export business, we were told to operate in 2 geographies at least. That means in the northern hemisphere and in the southern hemisphere. If you may feel that a customer is very good, he pays you very good prices, and then you put 90% of your business with that customer, and suddenly many times you have seen something goes wrong with the customer's business, and then your business also collapses equally with that. To avoid this, it's better to make sure that you don't have more than 25% with any customer. And while this may not happen overnight, consciously work on it, and in a year's time, make sure that at least this problem gets sorted out and you have 4 or 5 customers whom you can depend on. So if one is doing well, the other may not be doing so well, and then your business at least will be quite stable. Now, another way to address this challenge is to diversify the range of customers. You need to look at new markets, new methods of marketing, segments of customers. There can be wholesalers, there can be retailers, there can be distributors. So you look at different types of customers, or even the final customer. So you look at B2B as well as B2C, and try to diversify your business to reduce the risk of some customer not placing enough orders that you need. The other important thing that many MSMEs need to have, if you look at the Infosys balance sheet, they have some very, very interesting metrics that they present. They always will tell you how many new customers they got each quarter, how many customers exited every quarter, how many employees they got in, how many left. Now, these are very, very important, and there's no reason why an MSME cannot also keep such data in their own companies. You need to follow corporates in terms of management reporting and data collection and presentation. If you have this and you analyze it every quarter, I think the entrepreneurs will see a lot of new opportunities and problems which they can solve very easily, provided they have accurate data to present. So I would urge all entrepreneurs to have records of new customers every quarter, records of customer exits every quarter, and also the reason for the exit. Don't ask the customer as soon as he exits what happened, but 1-2 months later, we always do that. You call him and ask him, just for your learning, I want to know why did you leave? And perhaps he will tell you the true reason, and then you can take corrective action as required. And then reach out to different categories of wholesaler, dealer, direct to customer, and reach out to new markets, which are, for example, you could go into exports in a small way and then reach out to new markets. And the next point is also a very difficult issue, that when you have tried all these methods and still the business is not viable, it's a difficult decision, but you must learn also to exit the business if it is not viable. This is very difficult, especially when it's a family-owned concern and so on. Something is being going for 50, 60 years. To exit is not an easy emotional decision, but sometimes it's required. And even if you look at many of the successful corporates worldwide, They have also exited businesses many times and then reinvented themselves and done well. So this is not something that is new. You take a company like Nokia. I think 30, 40 years ago, Nokia used to be in the rubber business. Then they were into mobile. Then they were into at least 8 or 10 different products over the last 30, 40 years. And they exited the businesses which are not viable, starting from rubber. And today they are into telecom. So they see the range of businesses that they have shifted over years. And if the business is not viable and you have tried all the strategies not worth it, it's worth exiting. But while exiting, it's no use to say that I will exit when the market or the business is at its lowest ebb. The value that you will get will be almost nil. So when you see the market going down, it's better to carefully plan an exit strategy over 3 or 6 months, and then try to sell the business to somebody when there is still some value, and then come out of the business. This is also very important. And exit before the business reaches its lowest point. Not at the lowest point, you will get no value. And exit when other options have failed. Knowing when to exit is also an important strategy. So one of the reviews that I would urge MSME people to do is to do this exercise of seeing if the business is viable and is it time to exit, and in what time frame is it required to exit, or rather than hanging on to the business. I see this particularly in the market here. In retail, there are people who have got small stores selling fabrics and so on, or shirts or whatever. And I can see that their business has gone down by 60%, 70%. In fact, one owner told me, where I buy shirts, he told me that he doesn't even cover his costs running the business, but he has done nothing else in the last 50 years. So he's still continuing. I think it would have been better for him to, take advantages of his retail space, sell the business and do something else, or just retire. So this is again something that needs to be evaluated every year to see whether it is really viable and how do you go on with this. Now, this is an interesting slide I want you to look at. There are some things that we should not do when we face competition. Cut prices and therefore reach razor-thin margins in your own business. What is the point that if I'm making 5 rupees a piece and I'm producing 100 pieces, tomorrow I cut my price and then I have to make 500 pieces to achieve the same margin? It doesn't make any sense when you have to work 5 times harder to produce the same goods and then do it. And therefore, you should never cut price. Yes, you can cut marginally, or you can do it one-off incidents are possible, but definitely don't try to cut prices across the board and then thereby cutting your razor-thin margins, and that will in fact sink your business very fast. The other thing you should not do is increase the credit period. This is a very big major mistake that I see many MSMEs do. The competitor, you are giving 15 days credit, the competitors suddenly increased it to 2 months. You say, I'll match it, I'll give you 3 months. The moment you give 3 months, you can be 80% sure the money will not come back. People, when you're getting free money, any price is acceptable to them. Even a higher price is acceptable because he is not intending to pay you. And where they have such long periods, they will definitely squeeze you a little more, and you will never see the money, and all the profit margin that you calculate are only on paper and not on reality. The third mistake is not to hold large stocks of raw materials or finished goods. This is the biggest, one of the biggest dangers, that when the market competition is very tight, to hold large stocks of raw materials or finished goods is a very dangerous thing, because if the market goes down further, you will be left with huge losses to contend with. And when you have such stocks, people will squeeze you 10 more times. In our own project, where we have 7,500 acres of land for industrial use, we have ready-built factories which we make and then rent it to customers. Though we are one of the best in India, we never keep more than 1 building ready for rent. Because if I build 5 or 6, even if you have the money, thinking the costs are low, customers immediately start giving half the rent, saying you have five buildings which are empty. Why don't at least you will get some rent instead of nothing. So the price gets pushed down to 50%, and customers tend to squeeze you a lot. So we never, as a policy, keep more than 1 shed ready. And that too, it's only half ready. So when the customer is willing to take it, then only we make it, so that we don't have stock of finished goods or raw materials, whichever industry we have. What we should also not do is to reduce quality of our products in difficult times. In difficult times, you should improve the quality, but definitely not let the quality go down, because that will sink the business very fast. Or reduce marketing efforts for that matter, which will again cause great difficulty. Another important aspect I wish to bring is the importance of communication. When business is low, increase the communication. Many MSMEs have made the mistake that when business is slow, they will not answer calls, they will not respond to mail, they won't respond to any form of communication, and they get into a shell. That is the worst way to do business. And you need to keep talking to customers and market leaders to assess the changing needs of the market. Keep on talking. In fact, when communication should become double when the market is low. And when there are delays or problems, many MSMEs stop taking calls or responding to mails. If there are payment problems, keep talking to suppliers and do not avoid them. In fact, in 2008, when we started our project in 2006, in 2008-9, when we had the Lehman Brothers collapse, we had a serious problem because we had a cash crunch. The banks are not willing to give us loans, and nobody was willing to finance us. And we did have some payment difficulties where we were not able to pay the suppliers on time, although other times we always paid everybody perfectly. At this time, at least 3 or 4 of our senior team used to keep talking to our suppliers, assuring them that there is a problem, we are not lying about it, we have a serious problem, and this has been caused by external circumstances. We are doing our best, but make sure that one day we will definitely pay you, but it will take me 3 more months to pay you. When you keep talking to customers like that, they also have confidence that you will keep your word, and they will not harass you or trouble you. And after the 2010, when we came out of the crisis, we cleared everything. Until today, the suppliers are willing to give us credit at any downturn that we need, if the need arises, because they know that we will not let them down and the communication will not go down. There's one slide on metrics. Some of it I've already discussed. But my general impression is most MSME units have very poor metrics to measure the business. They are unable to really analyze business based on facts and data. It's all on gut feeling or personal knowledge and so on. And therefore, we call all this as anecdotal data, not based on facts. If you do not measure, you do not know what is happening. And if you do not know what is happening, you definitely cannot improve. And do not have motherhood metrics, and review metrics regularly and take action where required. You look at a company like Amazon, where my son works, and they have some of the best metrics in the world. And they have senior, very senior managers, almost the topmost level, reviewing the metrics every 2 weeks, reviewing whether the metrics are good or bad or they need to be changed and so on. And then they review, and the metrics is one of the things that has really helped Amazon become a world leader that they are today. So this is something to learn. In terms of reports, all MSMEs must work like corporates. Yes, you may be small, but that doesn't mean that you don't prepare a monthly report, which is like a corporate monthly report, which is a full monthly report, which has a P&L account, a balance sheet, a cash flow, credit and payment review, and the market situation. This can be maybe not more than 10 pages. In a corporate, it will probably be 50 pages. But it is important that all MSME units also make a proper formal report like this every month, because then you sit and review, and also it must be delivered by the 4th, 5th of the next month. Otherwise, there's no use. You cannot take corrective action. And review these reports to see what is good in the business, what is wrong in the business, and take action immediately rather than wait for things to happen and then overtake your business. The biggest problem is you ask many MSME people and ask them last month, how much cash did you generate in the business after all your expenses? Many of them are not able to give a correct figure. And this is again something that they need to understand. If you don't generate cash in the business, how will you survive? And when you get the early signs in the first month, it's better to know and take action than to wait for the end. Yeah, just. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we open the floor to the audience, there's one question already keyed in, sir.
Yes.
This is from Mr. Balasubramanian Santanam.
Yes.
New innovations are imitated by competitors quickly at lower costs. How to meet the challenge?
Yeah. Any competitor will always come up with some innovation, but then you have to also make sure that you are doing innovations yourself all the time, and therefore you may not be able to match his innovation at any particular moment of time, but over some time you will be able to catch up with him. But if you are not doing any improvements or innovation in your own company, then to expect a miracle one fine morning is impossible. So you will have to do improvements yourself. You may find a big innovation tomorrow, but you can catch up very fast rather than doing nothing.
Sir, I am Narayan Prasanna,
Yes.
Secretary of Laghu Udyog Bharati.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation on competition and business strategies. Sir, many of our members are suppliers for OEMs.
Yes.
That may be in different segments, maybe automotive, electronics, plastics, rubbers, food processing, even in transportations also.
Correct.
And the prices are fixed by the OEMs. They say it is scientifically or maybe logically also. But because of uncertainties, raw material price, quantity variations, labor cost, other overheads, at the end of the month or in the year during the balance sheet, if we review, the margin what they save is very thin. It is not as per the costings projections. It is not matching.
Yes.
They say 5 to 8% for the per component or per service. But at the end of the year, it may be around 2-3%. And in that, he has to manage all other financial costs. Finally, it's running business for the corporates only. On the raw material side, they are also corporates. And the other hand, these customers are also the corporates. In between these two corporates, these MSMEs are sandwiched and they're just aging themselves. So how would you propose, what can be the strategy for this for MSMEs?
This is a very interesting.
They can earn more.
Yeah, this is a very interesting.
Earlier it was there was the profitability was more. Now the year on year, even though they implement lean management, quality management system, everything, still it is the struggling only for the MSMEs. They are struggling for survival.
See, this is a very interesting question, and that affects not only MSMEs but even large companies. And we had, even in our company, we had a problem that when we made new construction of buildings and so on, there were cost overruns of even 10-15%, sometimes even 20%. And then we said this is not acceptable because we cannot have such cost overruns over time, although there are price increases as in any other business. Slowly we improved our systems and so on, and today, because the accuracy has improved, our cost overrun is less than under 1%. You have to constantly work on it. And for example, one way to do it with customers with components and food industries and all is to go into what is called transparent costing. That you show the costing to the customer and tell him, look, this is my material price, this is my margin, this is what I do. And if there is a price increase, you also need to give me, otherwise I will not, my margin will be, there's no point selling you at a loss. So that is one method of doing it. If that is not possible, then you need to do two things. One is to find out how the other man who is supplying at that price is surviving. Is there something missing in your business that he is able to do and he is surviving? If he is also having the same problem, then it is better to find another customer or exit this line of business completely, because there is absolutely no point in making loss. And the more important thing is, why do you have to wait till the end of the year to find that you lost on material? Every month you can find out that I lost because of material, or my margin got eroded because of 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. That is very important, to find out at every 30-day cycle what is happening. Then you can take corrective action much faster.
Ms. Pallavi Shekhar, would you want to ask a question? Please go ahead. Pallavi, you have raised your hand. Unmute.
Yeah, please
Is
go
it
ahead.
audible?
Yeah, it is audible.
Sir, actually, I have, one small, I can say doubt or whatever. So
Yes.
this is, with respect to service industry,
Yes.
in this pandemic, okay, and what would be the 5 key things which we should keep it in mind going further, sir? In terms of our, business growth and then strategies and other things. So what do you feel that, we as SMEs and MSMEs, what you feel that we should keep it in mind, or maybe we should definitely implement sort of a thing? Okay, what do you suggest, sir?
Yeah. In the service industry, one of your biggest costs is actually the manpower cost. And this is something that you need to review and reduce. Now, if you look at the IT industry, my son used to work in one of the world's top IT companies some years ago, and he still works in the same company. But not today, but about 8-9 years ago, the company used to pay very well, but they told him every year when the software that you make, you need to automate 50% of it by the end of 360 days. That means where you require 2 manpower, you will need only 1 after 1 year. Otherwise, you don't need to be in that company. So you need very aggressive cost cutting through automation or other means and so on to reduce your manpower cost and make sure that your manpower cost comes down. That is the core cost in the service industry. The second is look at the competitors and benchmark against them. If somebody has a manpower cost of say 5,000 and you have 8,000, you should find out how you can come to 5,000. That is one part. And the other one is also the other aspects of transport or other things that you do. To keep looking at it and see how you can cut those costs aggressively and break down the elements of cost into 3 or 4 main segments which contribute to 80% of your cost. You look at 3-4 things which contribute to 80% of your cost and study those every month and do it. One interesting thing that I can really help you is I am from IIT Bombay, and our alumni association has a lot of very experienced people who are retired and who would be very happy to help you free of cost. We are all sitting at home doing very little. And with our experience, if we can be of some help, we don't need to pay expensive consultants and so on. If you have a specific problem and you come with us to some data, I'm sure there are enough alumni who would be willing to help you and make sure that you have some good advice which you can take or not take. That's up to you. But that facility is available from the alumni there. And depending on the problem, sometimes they may say it's not possible for us to help you. But in many cases, I think like this, if we went deep, we could solve the problem quite easily for you.
Oh, that will be really great, sir. Because what happens, we as SMEs, on a broad picture,
Yes.
we might neglect or might not implement certain automated, procedures. So when we started implementing that, so as you say, we can reduce the manpower and then save a lot of, cost there towards our profitability. Okay, and sir, I think later I can take your details and maybe I can mail it to you my queries. Okay, so it is really nice, if you could help us.
Yeah, I will just give you one example, which is very interesting here. Some years ago, when I was in Chennai in Tata, we were shipping goods to Hong Kong. And then I found out that there were a lot of containers coming from Hong Kong. Maybe 100 containers would come from Hong Kong. And what went out as exports was only 2 or 3. So the container people had a lot of problems paying for idle charges for empty containers going back to Hong Kong. So they said, look, one man offered me that I will take your freight free of cost to Hong Kong, because at least the handling charges of the container you are paying, and then I will take the freight free. When I told my headquarters in our company, they laughed. They said, who in this world will do free? But there are people who will do it free, and you have to see such opportunities and use them. The same thing used to be with Lufthansa. They used to send cargo every week, I think 5 times a week from Chennai. We were doing a lot of air freighting. So we used to speak to Lufthansa that I have got cargo I can send this week or I can send next week also because I have enough delivery time. You tell me whenever your having less cargo, tell me one day ahead, and my cost should be 50% of the normal price. And they did it. And we were air freighting at half the price. So like this, you need to use innovative things. Our alumni can help you. Please get in touch with us. And where it is possible, you could get free advice and help. Yeah.
Okay,
So
sir.
there is a
Sir, if you
question
could,
from-
share the phone number.
I'll
at
share
least
it, ma'am.
once.
I'll share it with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is a question from Mr. B. Praveen.
Yes.
He says, post-lockdown, how will MSMEs recoup its businesses? Mr. Praveen, you would like to add some more? Go ahead. Please unmute.
Unmute.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It was a wonderful presentation, Professor, first of all, and thanks Laghu Udyog Bharati for organizing such a wonderful event during this pandemic. I really appreciate the effort. Thank you so much, sir. It was very insightful. My few questions to you, sir, because I represent CASIA, which is Karnataka Small Scale Industry Association. Majority of us are micro and small units, industries per se in Karnataka. Now, the biggest question for us is, as Mr. Prasanna was rightly telling, survival. Because 70% of the industries today in Karnataka or across the country are micro units who depend on the labor jobs or maybe one or two line of products. Now, when it is a question of survival, there was a very interesting fact which you tweeted. For these micro units, there is no time, there is no chance for them to change over the segment, change over the line of business or exit business, because it's a living lifeline for them. So in these kind of circumstances, post this pandemic, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months, do you think they have a chance for survival, or do you have any better ideas than exiting? What is that we can do post this pandemic, maybe 3 months down the line? First question. I can take one after another, sir. So,
This is very interesting. One of the ways to do this is a very serious problem across India. And what we can do is, if you give us one sector of 2 or 3 small micro industries in one particular sector, because the same solution won't work for all sectors, we can look at some of them and see what we can do and suggest a few things, if it is possible, of how they can survive in terms of pandemic. There is a very interesting thing that I would like to share with you. When I was in Tata, we had a chairman who came and visited us, and in one of the divisions in my office, they were doing projects. He found a manager sitting idle, and he said, what happened? He says, I don't have any business. This is possible even in a big company. But the chairman said something which was very interesting. He said, look, I quite understand you don't have business and you're sitting idle, but at least in this time, if you started reading about the latest developments in your business in terms of technology and so on, number one, you yourself will become a master, and when the market improves, you will be a lot richer with your knowledge, and don't waste your time sitting idle. So this is again a good time to what I could do is take one sector with my colleagues in the alumni, take it as a challenge. You don't need to pay anything. There's no charges or anything. And we will see what we can do to advise or help and how to get over these challenges. It needs to be done sector by sector.
Definitely. I think, a nice input, Professor. And the second question is this uncertainty post-pandemic, especially right now, right from the basic raw material, which is about 70 to 80% of our industries, that itself, there is an uncertainty in terms of the pricing. In terms of, as Mr. Prasanna was telling, is it nail on his head? Right now, quantities, there is a variation, and there is a dearth of labor, skilled labor. The laborers are no more available free of cost. It will take another 6 to 8 months. So there are a lot of external factors which are impacting us. Keeping these uncertainties, how do we handle these challenges? There are a lot of external factors, what I'm trying to tell you. So how do we deal with the uncertainty for the next?
You look at steel. We were buying TMT bars at something like 40,000 a few months ago, and today it is 57,000, 58,000 per ton. So that's a huge increase in price. So the best is, in such circumstances, take either you put some money and then keep some stock, knowing that the price will go up, and then at least cope with customers for a short period of 1 month or 2 months. Or every time, like gold has the same volatility as steel. Gold has more volatility, in fact. But what do all the jewelers don't go bankrupt? what they do is they buy immediately. If you place an order today from a customer, you get an order, they will go and buy that steel the same day at the price at which they contracted, so that there is no delay. But if you delay and then wait for things, there are ways to solve the problem. The jewelry business is more volatile and has much more uncertainty than steel there. And structural steel today is something like 75,000. It is nowhere. It used to be 50,000 at one time. So what do you do in such cases? But people are not going bankrupt and prices are likely to increase another 10% in the next 3 months. You can be rest assured, because the international price is much higher than the Indian price of steel. So in such cases, it's better to do two things. One is you book an order at a particular price and buy the steel the same day and keep it in stock.
Okay.
That is one way. Or you tell customers that, you know, I will give you a quotation, but it's valid only for 15 days. In the market today, there are people in some businesses where the quotation is valid only for 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
these are not different things. There are, in every business, there are challenges, and some businesses, they say 30 minutes, you confirm yes or no, otherwise I'm not going to take the order. So we have to be a little smart and do it. But again, it's very easy to say across the board. You will have to give me a specific sector to see what is to be done, and then try out over the next 2 months or 3 months, what can we do to improve things.
Yeah, Mr. Suresh Iyer wants to add a point.
Yeah.
Please go ahead, Mr. Suresh Iyer.
Yeah, good evening, all of you. Thank you, Ramesh, for a wonderful presentation. And I like your support for this initiative for the IIT alumni. And to all of you, me and Ramesh are part of the Chennai Alumni Association here in Chennai. We have experts in different lines of engineering and management. We would like to, because MSME in India, as Ramesh said, is a backbone. And mine and few other people's objective is to beat China. And so much so that me and Shekhar and Narayana Prasanna have been discussing this for some time. One thing which last point which Ramesh mentioned about prices being held at 30 minutes, I've got that experience with castor oil. Castor oil prices are never quoted more than 30 minutes. Nowadays, I don't think they quote more than 5 minutes because of this online thing. I'm talking of 30 minutes in 93. All right. Now, coming back to certain points which were mentioned, which I felt because the brilliance of what Ramesh did, it's not small time. We need a lot of time with him because of his enormous experience. Please note that what he mentioned about the reverse containers going empty is valid even across Dubai. Now, this aspect people must know, so that your products which is lying idle, you please ensure collectively that you sell off all your products fast, auction it or sell it, find ways and means to sell it. There's a very good opportunity which he mentioned. Similarly, Dubai has a reverse method by which shipments from Dubai to India are almost costing nothing. So if you want to import some raw materials, do the reverse, export it to Hong Kong, which is reverse again going empty. So it's a very huge potential. Some of you must notice how this logistics works. And again, we are offering a free management course from Monday to Friday next week. Again, a lot of alumni, a lot of people are speaking. Ramesh is again speaking there, but this is specific to textiles companies and garments. So those of you want to join there, please message Shekhar. We will take that forward. All help to MSME. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sandeep Parvatikar, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. A nice presentation. I will directly go to my question, sir.
Yes.
How frequently we need to review our strategies, sir? Can you throw some light on that?
Normally, in a MSME company, I would say a minimum of once a quarter. You need to spend a half day out of the business, not in the factory. You will never get time, or in the business, sit somewhere else with one or two of your key colleagues and review once a quarter. And in some businesses where today it is very, very sensitive, for example, steel prices are going through the roof, I would do it once a month. But otherwise, when steel prices stabilize, then we could do it once a quarter. But once a quarter is a very good way to do it. And you just need that half a day, a little away from the factory without any disturbance, put off your mobiles and just focus on the business. Human thinking has tremendous potential. And if I give you examples of cost cutting and how we can do, which other companies have done, there is a lot of things that may be possible, some with help and some on your own. With your own people, you could do it there. So that, I hope, answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Mr. Vijay Revashetty, please. You have raised your hand. Vijay Revashetty. Okay, we'll go to Dr. Suranda RK.
Yeah.
Namaste, sir.
Good evening.
So thank you for the perfect and a brief presentation on the business line. Sir, as you have worked with the leather industry as
Yes.
per your introduction, so I would like to know about what are the, because nowadays getting a pure leather is a challenge.
Yes.
And what's the status of the leather industry in Karnataka? Is it going to survive or is it going to end? This is my first question.
Yeah.
Then second question is like, as majority of the discussions were towards the centralized industries.
Mhm.
But if we look at the ancestral art or the other things, the Grama Shilpi or the rural artisans or the our traditional art has its own demand, and it has its own skill, talent, and the technicality and the scientific reason behind each and everything.
Yes.
But how to revamp this decentralized industry is also a challenge. So can you throw a light on it, sir?
Okay. With regard to the leather industry, it's a very difficult industry because you're dealing with a natural product where the availability is uncertain, and also as having worked in the industry, the effort is far more than the result that you get, and this has been told by many of my colleagues also. But with regard to Lagu, smaller organizations in the leather industry, the times are not going to be easy for the next 1 or 2 years because the price of leather is going up and the availability and quality is reducing. The other important thing is now synthetics are improving so dramatically that in many cases you cannot make out the difference between the synthetic and the original leather, even for trained people. So the one of the things that these organizations should look at, is it viable to start using some amount of synthetics also along with the leather, so that they are able to meet prices there. And there are a lot of interventions which you can see which made. I was in one of the interventions in Karnataka also, where we did with Kolhapuri chappals in near Belgaum, and we gave them plastic lasts and so on, and they survived in the business. So there is a book that I have written recently, which is available. Mr. Shekhar can share it. There are a lot of ideas about the leather industry. Perhaps you could have a look, or if there's a specific thing, you could let me know, and then we could take it with CLRI or somebody here. That's possible.
Sure, sir. I'll get back.
Srimati Shailaja Vittal, please go ahead.
Thank
Yeah.
you, sir.
Namaskar, sir. It's a
Yes.
quite interesting session. Thank you. You're mentioning that the quotation time you should not give more than 15 days, 1 week, given the situation. But
Yes.
when we are dealing with government organization, the quotation we have to go with the bidding, and it will take 45 days. Then by the time we get the purchase order, it will take another 45 days, and the payment and so on like that. And they follow this L1 also. There
Yes.
we cannot, considering all these aspects, we cannot increase the price also.
Yes.
How to go about when we are supplying to the government organization, how to not to incur loss, or how
Yeah.
to go about it, sir?
See, this problem is not only for you, but also for your competitors. They have the same problem. So you should factor in, based on your product and materials that you're using, what will be the price increase over 3 months, or you fix with your supplier that I'm quoting for this order, and if I get it, I need to have this at this fixed price. If you are with me, I am with you. And then make a deal with your supplier that at least I will tell you in 1 month that I'm getting the order or not. But then you have to keep the price constant and buy the material the day you get the order. So that is the only way that you can do it, because you can work on a forecast to see what will happen in 3 months' time on the price, but then that will only increase the price for you. But the best way is to work closely with the supplier or raw material and ask him to be part of this business, so that when you get the order, the day you get the order, you place the order on him and take it. He also knows he is getting an assured order, but the price will be constant.
Mr. B.S. Srinivasan, please go ahead.
I have one more related to this. I have one more question. Shall I ask?
Yeah, please. please.
Yeah, so I do that also. At the time of quotation itself, I speak to my supplier, but when it is 3 months old, during from 1 year, it is fluctuation so high, even they're very helpless. They cannot help me in this regard. Earlier, they used to take 45 days, it's okay. But
Yeah.
no, even they're finding it very difficult. They say it is not possible since the gap is too high. They are helpless. In that case, I have to pay them only. They cannot support
In
me.
that case, you should tell your government tender also, you should say my quotation is only valid for 3 months. Because after 3 months, if it is a loss, what is the use of making the order? It
Yeah,
is
that's
just-
what
yeah,
happening in
it
some
is better.
cases.
In our own business today, we quote prices for 2 months and we say, look, after that, I may change the price. But if you don't like it, we say, okay, sorry, it's bad luck, but that's it. But sometimes you have to be very firm and you fix a 3-month time for the government order. If it takes more than that, you have the right to revise the price. You get the order or not get the order is another thing, but no point in making. The important thing is not to lose money while making an order, just because it's an order. Turnover is a big hassle in India, just to keep the banks happy and so on. That the fix on getting turnover at any cost is really a very big problem in the MSME sector. Otherwise, the banks will get after you and so on. But this is something that we need to find a solution with some of the experts of how to get over this turnover mentality. Maybe my turnover is half, but if I make even money on that, is better than to make full and then lose money.
Mr. B.S. Srinivasan.
Sir, good evening, sir. Wonderful presentation from your end, sir.
Okay.
I run a company, Wipro Electronics, from last about 37 years.
Yes.
And the last 15-20 years have been a very turbulent time. And 90% we are surviving because of imports and about 10 to 15% addition from our value addition at our end. And your concept of Make in India in electronics and telecom would be a very nice initiative, because we do not have the infrastructure in India even to manufacture many of the raw materials and components. And on the second point, I wanted some more information on the metrics of in the MSME sector on the facts and data. What are the facts and data that we have to look to check on the metrics?
Yeah. First, on the electronic sector, I am quite closely involved with the electronic sector because we lease land to electronic company, and my own experience that I have seen here, this is a game of scale. It is very difficult for very small units to survive, because the whole business with imports from China and other places, the global thing works on scale. We have a company in our place making 5 million mobiles a month, 5 million, 3 phones a second. And therefore, if somebody makes 20,000 mobiles a month, he cannot compete on cost with this company. And India, we never learned how to scale up, but now companies are learning how to scale. That is one sector. So you have to be very careful on electronics. Without scale, I would think very carefully about investing in electronics at the present moment, because the prices will be far, far higher. Coming to the second thing on the metrics, if you can discuss on a Skype call after this any day for about half an hour and tell me if some aspects of your business, we can set up some metrics and send it to you, which you can start using in your business. There is no cost involved or anything, but we will at least send you some sample metrics that you can use. The other thing, Mr. Shekhar, for Laghu Udyog, I feel, we could work with a group of people to develop a monthly P&L report format, which you can share with all the members, because at least then they know what information they need to get, have it done or modify or improve on it. But at least a basic P&L complete monthly report format should be available to them, so that they have something to start with.
Okay, sir. So there's a question from Mr. K. Ravi. What is your opinion on the effect of COVID on India's business with China? China is increasing its prices during these times.
Yeah. With China, our business has gone down already by almost 30 or 40 billion dollars, has reduced now. And you and I haven't suffered anything in the last 6 or 8 months due to political reasons and so on. So just because China was supplying so much, in fact, that excess supply killed a lot of our industries, like building materials, tiles, toys, stuffed toys, all these industries got killed because there's very low prices from China. And even footwear and so on, we started importing footwear, whereas India has a lot of capacity to make footwear here. So I think it's always a good thing. Our business in India post-COVID will not go down. That is for sure. The business will be intact. The way we do business may change, but the business will not go down. And because of China, in fact, our local production will go up more than to have to import. In fact, now government is also forcing many of them to come in India and manufacture. So that is going to change. We need to look at very different ways of doing things. One is a quantum way of change, not a very minor change. And here I want to just mention one example of Asian Paints. All paint dealers, they are the most profitable paint company in India. Margins are the best in India for many, many years. What they do is they don't have a dealer network. They don't have a wholesaler and this traditional, they do directly with the dealer, supply twice a day to the dealer, so he doesn't need to keep stock. And they have a SAP system, which is the best users of SAP in the world are Asian Paint. So what they have done is the margin that we're going for this business for marketing of 40%, they have brought it down to 10%. So there's a quantum jump, and they are therefore much better off than their competitors. So one needs to think of such methods if it is possible in your business.
Team Decor has raised a hand. Please go ahead, sir. Team Decor.
Sir, good evening.
Yeah.
It's as everybody saying, it's a nice session only. Sir, I have a question. It's like when you said innovations. Okay, I run an interior designing company and I have my own factory also.
Yes.
So I'm just working on, because from the past lockdown itself, I started working on it parallelly because of the business. It was going down. So I thought of starting a new venture, that is making products out of the scrap which is available in my factory. Now the product is ready. It's like, because of the pandemic and the negativity around us, I'm not able to go ahead. It's like, what if it becomes a failure? So if you can just help us coming out of it or anything else, probably it'll be better, sir. Because see, this as such, there is no business. Interior designing is a luxurious business, and it's not affordable for everybody. That is one thing. That is one thing which is pulling us down. Like, you cannot maintain the factory and other things. So just to come out of it, I just started my own product. Now the product is ready, but because of all these negativity, I'm not able to go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we are clueless. When you say innovation, the product is a handicraft product, sir. It's all made of scrap. And very few are doing it. This is completely a different product that I have generated. Maybe we can, and the idea is to get this done through ladies who are staying at home completely.
Okay.
So, and giving them employment, or people who are there in the jail, women who are, there in the jail from so many years, I just want to go approach them and give them employment also. In a way, and I'm reusing the entire thing which is going into the dump yards.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all okay, but there is no confidence because of this COVID. It's like, what if I become a failure?
See, this in big or small, failures are part of life, and therefore, if you have 10 businesses, 3 or 4 will fail for sure. There's nothing wrong. A company like TVS Sundaram Iyengar, the original owner, he failed in every business that he did for about 15 years. Only when he came to auto components, he succeeded and survived. Otherwise, the TVS group would have collapsed. So there's nothing wrong in the failure. But here, yours is a marketing problem. My suggestion is go to one of the management schools in Bangalore, Narsi Monji or any one of these. There are a lot of students who want to do projects. Take it to them. They don't charge you anything. Go to one of the Narsi Monji. I could introduce you to the director. I know him, and I could offline we can do that. And ask the students to do a marketing study whether this product is viable, the price is okay, and so on. And they could do a report and give you a report which would be very useful for you to take it forward. There are many management schools, not just one. And not the bigger one like I am, but a smaller school. And give it as a project to some of them, and you don't have to spend much money, and yet these students will be able to tell you a lot of things which you need to know about this thing, whether it's viable or not. Yours is a marketing problem.
Okay, sir. Fine. Thank you.
Sir, Mr.
Okay.
Vijay
Okay, sir.
Reveshetty.
Thank you.
Mr. Vijay Reveshetty, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Please ask the question.
Sir, it is okay. You told me to raise my hand. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Anybody else in the audience, please go ahead. We can take one last question. Okay, I think there are no more questions, sir. Thanks a lot for the exhaustive session today, sir. It was a great honor having you amidst us today. We sincerely appreciate you, sir, for so readily accepting our invitation and addressing our member companies. I'm sure our member companies would have immensely benefited from your exhaustive insights. On behalf of Laghu Udyog Bharati Karnataka, once again, I thank you very much, sir. I would like to inform the participants that tomorrow we have a very interesting session on the topic, approach to develop exit and/or diversification strategy for MSMEs. This session will be addressed by Sri Sharad Gandhi. He's a global manufacturing and technology strategist. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And those companies who want to contact us can do so offline. If you can give them our contact numbers, they can do it to me or Suresh.
I've already put it on the chat, sir.
Yes. So the specific issues like metrics and all we can address, and we are free, so we can do that.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. We officially close the session now.
Thank you.